Sitting to my left is a new face to the well. Alan was being polite or something, kind of just walking back and forth in front of the front door this morning, and I stuck my head out the door and I just said, "Hey, how you doing?" And didn't know this was the Alan that was coming to do the interview with me this morning. And so I want to introduce to you Alan Shropshire. I got it.
Yes, sir.
I got it. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, two SHs together. Alan is an organizer that works full-time with Caleb, which is Chattanooga in Action for Love, Equality, and Benevolence. And we have, over the last few weeks, been introducing you as a congregation to a growing friendship and affiliation that we have with Caleb. We have officially come alongside the organization as an affiliate. We make a financial contribution as a church to the organization. But beyond that, we have individuals that are learning about and some that are already serving on task forces with Chattanooga in Action for Love, Equality, and Benevolence. A couple of weeks ago, Alan, we had Tron Wilder with us. Tron is one of our wellies. He's one of our church members, and he volunteers on the education task force. And so we've introduced the well to the idea of the education task force. We realize there are two others. There's the task force that looks and works with housing and economic mobility. And then there is the third one, which is criminal justice reform.
Well, criminal justice reform and criminal justice task force, either or.
Okay. So we'll get to that in a second. But I want to find out, and I want the well and those watching to get a little bit better acquainted with you. So tell us just a little bit more about yourself. How long has Chattanooga been home? Did you grow up here? You have family in the area? Just background information so we get to know Alan Shropshire just a little bit better.
Well, I was born and raised here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up in what they call the most impoverished part of the city of Chattanooga. That's the 37406 area code, Avondale/East Chattanooga area code. I grew up with a big family. I think I grew up with maybe 4 or 5 generations in one household. So you had my granny, her sisters, their kids, kids, all in one house. So sharing was something I always grew up doing. And I must say, like, I've been here all my life, but I've traveled to different places like Chicago, LA, Florida, you name it. I've probably been all around, but, you know, Chattanooga's home. So as far as family, I have family all around the city. It's not a probably area I can't go in without knowing someone or knowing family all in the city of Chattanooga. So that's just basically who I am. I guess I'm a graduate of Brainerd High School here locally. Middle school, I went to Hickson. Elementary school, I went to Rivermont. So it was a very up and down, very diverse growing up my earlier years. And then as I became in the high school, I was a good student, top 10% of my class, all the above. So just a normal kid in a way.
Okay, very cool. So let's, as I just mentioned, we are kind of familiar with an overarching umbrella of Caleb and the 3 main areas of emphasis. And Tron spent some time with us talking about the education task force. But if you would, share with us about your role with Caleb and how you came to get involved with what this organization is all about.
Okay. Well, I know I've been in community work since 2014. I used to work for an organization over in Avondale by the name of Hope for the Inner City. Over there, I ran a program called Jobs for Life. Jobs for Life is a job readiness program. At the time, I actually went through the program myself. And then I had the opportunity to be one of the recruiters for the program. So working in a community where we're teaching male and female how to do job readiness skills, interviewing, code switching, those different things, and be able to, you know, sell themselves into employment. I also went through a run in my life where I was going, and I'm a formerly incarcerated male. I was going through a lot of ups and downs in my life where I was constantly being incarcerated. And after that, I had a good friend by the name of Chris Woodhall that I came to, and he actually offered me a job at the Camp House downtown. Never knew what this was, like Camp House, okay. When I first walked in the doors, I was the only African-American male in there. It was a lot of more UTC, you know, Caucasian male and female in the building. But I did a big transition where the managers, we made a deal to where I started reaching out to those in my community, and they started hiring people. And so with that, there was another opportunity came along by the name of Building Green through this organization by the name of Green Spaces. And I never knew what Green Spaces was. And then when I looked into it, it was like, oh, okay, they deal with the environment, energy efficiency, and different things like that. So the Building Green program, it basically was a 12 weeks program, 10 gentlemen, all from different areas of the city, where we came together and we learned how to do energy efficiency, so do weather sealing in the homes. But the reality of it was about building community. Green Spaces, long story short, offered me a full-time job. I was working part-time, going around the city of Chattanooga doing workshops, teaching people how to save money on utilities and light bills. And then through that, I came across a gentleman by the name of Michael Gilliland. We did the People's Tour, and in the People's Tour was a lot of touchy things that happened with my family personally, where it was a moment off of Broad Street where they showed a picture of families being hosed with fire hoses. And that was one of the things that touched me, because my family, my mom, my granny, my aunties, all of them was out there when that happened that day. And I went back home and I was like, Mom, you know, I met this gentleman, he knows so much about history in Chattanooga, and I don't know who this gentleman is. Come to find out, he was working with Caleb. I'm like, what is Caleb? You know, I don't know what Caleb is. And started going to the meetings back in 2018. They sent me out to national leadership training. In the training, it taught us basically what our why is, and what your self-interest is. And I tell a lot of people I wasn't very clear what my self-interest is. And now I am. My clear self-interest is that I believe in shifting the narrative. Just because I am a formerly incarcerated male, just because I grew up in the inner city community, that doesn't determine who I am. As one thing about me, I always stood for saying, okay, yeah, I have a background. I'm not a felon, but I have a background, and I was treated like a felon for so long. So I was like, well, I gotta, get in the weeds of this. So I started working with local gang members. I started holding meetings, and these was one-off meetings. This wasn't out to the public. This was just more personal meetings to get a more understanding of what was going on. I'm not gang affiliated, but I know a lot of these gentlemen. And I'm doing that to say that was the door opening to Caleb. And at the time, I remember them starting the Hamilton County Community Bail Fund, where we bail people out up to $5,000. And that bail fund is not like being a bondsman. We pay the full amount. So, it's a wonderful thing that all the person has to do is basically give a referral in 3 to 4 different community contexts, and they can actually get bailed out through the bail fund. And with that, I came in, I volunteered. I was a part of Caleb since, like I said, 2018. Just in 2020, April, they came to me and they offered me a position. Never in a million years I would have thought I'll be a full-time organizer, because once again, like I said, I went through a lot of different things, worked for a lot of different organizations, but this is the first time that an organization believed in what I was already doing. I didn't realize that, I was doing this work, but I'm one person and I was just working inside my community. But when I started going outside of my community and working with others from other communities, I learned what building true power was, and that was organized people with organized money. We come collectively together and we build true power. So that's basically how I got a part of Caleb, and here I am now, 2021, and I'm a full-time organizer and working all around the city of Chattanooga. So.
Love it. Great story. So let's delve into the criminal justice thing a little deeper, if that's okay. How would you articulate, let's see, I want to make sure I asked my question correctly. How would you articulate what you perceive to be the brokenness of the criminal justice system? And you can address that, Alan, from a national level if you'd like. Of course, we're talking more specifically about Chattanooga, so feel free to do both if you'd like. But I think it's good for a bunch of us who are just not aware. In what ways, how would you articulate the brokenness of the system at a national and local level?
The best way I can do this, and I have this conversation a lot with a lot of people, I'm going to start from the beginning of it. What people don't realize is that the criminal justice system was created a little bit after slavery. When the 13th Amendment dropped, It was a part of the 13th Amendment that, these people was free, but if they caught a charge or was considered a criminal, they was incarcerated, right? So at that time, what was going on, there was a lot of displaced people all around the world, definitely in the South, of course, a lot of people that was displaced, and they was actually incarcerated. So I'm doing that to say the current, the system was created to bound down those that were in a lot of different communities, typically a lot of inner city communities all around the city, definitely how Chattanooga is. I would say it was already structured to be able to house a lot of people, because if you don't know, that's kind of why Caleb does with the education part, because they dealing with the school to prison pipelines. People don't know that they determine from a third grade level when a kid that, say if it's 3 kids, you got John, you got Timmy, you got Joe. So John and Timmy, they're doing good in school. They're making good grades, and they have a good, IQ on the reading test. But, Joe, he's not that good. So they determine that one kid out of maybe 3, he's not going to go off to college or go to school. So they build more jails for these people, and that's consistently been going on in the world. And then the percentile of what we have, we're at like 8%, if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong on that percentile, of the most incarcerated people in the world, and we don't make up half of the world, and this here in the United States. So I'm going bigger, and to say back locally that there's a lot of things in our system that, far as information, far as data being collected, is not there. State of Tennessee, if you don't know, we was the first state that actually had and made a deal with privatized prisons. So that's for-profit prisons. So that means they make money per person that they have in the bed. So that means that they have to have people in that bed. So if it's a minor misdemeanor or whatever, typically a lot of people stay in jail pre-trial, before they even seen a trial, just because of them having a lack of funds. So that's kind of why we created the bail fund. So far as saying the system as a whole, it started in the beginning. It was broken from the beginning, and if you want to my honest opinion about it, it has to be dismantled to be able to be rebuilt again.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, very educational for me, for sure. How would you describe what a healthy criminal justice system would look like?
Okay.
Fair?
Personally, I would say it would start with community support. One in particular that we see with our Hamilton County Community Bail Fund is different from a bondsman, is that we would not violate anyone. We've seen that if we give a person a call or two before the day or two before they go to court, they typically show up to court. Now, a healthy system would be community support, mental health. That plays a big part into being a better part. And then outside of that, it's determining what true public safety is. A lot of people twist and turn those words, but a lot of people don't think of it like this. When you take a person and incarcerate them for over 24 to maybe 48 hours, you think about the things they lose. They could lose their job, family, home, all the above. Definitely if the person's already struggling, think about what safety is that doing into the community. It's basically destroying parts of the community because this person cannot get out because of a simple misdemeanor. I'm not saying everybody, don't do anything, but those nowadays that people are going to jail for driving on revoked license, disorderly conduct, trespassing, some of the simpler things are, deteriorating us for moving forward in the system. So having a structural group or groups, organizations, churches that are a support system to help people get back into being a part of society. If a person doesn't feel like they're in, think about what you typically see with felons. They go through recidivism, where when they get out, they don't have anything else, because when you go sign up for a job, first thing they ask on you, are you a felon? When you check that box, that's typically, at most times, is a no. It's not always a yes, because sometimes it's case by case, but it's typically a no because, like I said, I'm not a felon, but the charges that I had on my record hinder me from getting good jobs, from moving forward. I worked one job in Collegedale where the whole plant was like, oh, Alan, you're a wonderful worker. You're a machine operator. I'm certified in all this. It's like, oh, we're gonna send your paperwork off to corporate. Corporate never met me. The boss and all the above was rooting for me. They sent my paperwork off to corporate. They seen my charges, and I'm not a felon. They did not hire me. So to see that, I would feel like it would have to be case by case, and learning to be able to give a person a chance to be able to get back in society. Because if you expect for them to change, how do you expect a person to change if you do not open doors to give them opportunity? Mm-hmm. So having opportunity and having a community hub of people that can actually open doors up, because half of the time it's not what you know sometimes in the system, it's who you know too. So yeah. I would think it would be that collective work, because it's going to take a lot of people at times feeling very uncomfortable, because one thing I learned about growth in my life is me sitting down in rooms and being very uncomfortable. I've worked in plenty of places where I've been the only African-American male, and like I was telling you when I first came in, a lot of people laugh at my name because it sounds like a white man, but I'm not. But I love it, because I love when I hit the room, I'm not what you expect to be as Alan Shropshire, but I am Alan Shropshire. I am who what my name says, and yes, I've had a past and a background, but moving forward, you can do something different.
With your name, I had envisioned the plaid jacket with the patches on the sleeves, and maybe even a pipe when you came in this morning. That's why when I saw you out front, I'm like, hey, come on in, man, warm up. And then it wasn't 10 minutes later, I'm like, what's your first name? And you're like, Alan. I'm like, wait, Alan Shropshire? Yeah. So we're talking about a system where it's stacked against the prison population. That's not the right phrase. It's stacked against potential people headed to prison to begin with, and then it gets you on the back end as well, because you come out with a record, and then it's difficult to, I mean, you just gave a perfect story about applying for a job and just being turned down because you had a record.
It would blow your mind if I was to show you a resume of mine, and I'm certified in machinery. I've been doing this for years. I have a lot of skill sets, and even with that, they still wouldn't hire me because of the things that was on my background. And I'm not a felon.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the steps you guys are taking with Chattanooga in Action for Love, Equality, and Benevolence to address the issues that are on the front end of this. And you've already mentioned the bail bonds, and you can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like, and on the back end as well. Just help us understand a little bit about what the organization is doing in that regard.
Okay. So like I said, we created the Hamilton County Community Bail Fund. That was because of those that were sitting in jail pre-trial. So that means they haven't been seen a judge. They haven't been basically pleaded. Well, they haven't been chosen to be guilty or innocent at the time. You're innocent to proven guilty. Right. So they haven't seen a judge. They haven't. They just been incarcerated. It's people that are sitting in jail right now. Maybe a couple $100 bond, $1,000, but the minimum be about $1,000, but they're sitting there because they cannot afford to bail themselves out. So when we bail them out up to $5,000. So that's why we created the Hamilton County Community Bail Fund on the front end. We also have the Immigration Bond Fund. If people don't know, nationally right now we have ICE holds that are going on. So those are immigrants that's just not in the Latinx community. There's immigrants that are not, don't have green cards, that are not, supposed to be here. They ship them back off. And we see that typically here, where immigrants are being held pre-trial, similar to those with the Hamilton County Community Bail Fund, but the only difference is that ICE will come in and ship them right off. And so that's a family that's been displaced. So those are the two things that we're doing on the front end. As far as the back end right now, we have a campaign where we're running in cash bail. So we are we have postcards where we have people sign. So we have a trifold to actually talk about step for step about how bail works. We also have a postcard talking about, sending out to our commissioners. Recently, we've actually been communicating with commissioners and having that connection with them. So talking to commissioners, seeing what we can actually implement, healthy, safe, and equitable, solutions for the, criminal justice system that we have here. It's a lot of things I can go into about that, but I must say, like, as an overall, our commissioners have, a big say-so into this, judges and different things like that. So these are some of the people, I go back to about building power, these are some of the people that we have to sit at the table with, such as myself, and have conversations with to get a better understanding of saying, hey, what could we do, where could we allocate funds, or what could we do collectively to come together to keep people from going in and, you know, keeping this system better, because our city could be better, but we have so many people incarcerated here locally that we don't realize it. But it's a lot of people that don't see that because they don't ever have to worry about that. The community I come from, it's highly policed, and it has a high presence of authority, which is not always needed. But that's only coming from because this is a community that's only known for drugs, gangs, different things like that. And I must say, in the beginning, I work with gang members. I know these gentlemen. Not all gangs are what you perceive on from the media. You have to get to know a person, have to get to know people and understand where they come from. This is a group of people that comes from a community that they didn't have maybe a lack of fatherhood, lack of family. So coming together like they did, they made a family. That became a family. They have order and structure similar to the military. They have a chain of command. A lot of times when I do go speak to gentlemen like that, I don't go down the command. I go up. I go to the person that I know everybody else respects. Who better to bring to the table and make a difference in their life than the person that everybody and all the other youngsters are looking up to, and get them to shift their life and show them something different. These are gentlemen that I grew up with, and a lot of people always ask me, like, Alan, what did you do to change your life? What did you do? And I'm going to go back to my self-interest. I believe in shifting the narrative. Just because I come from an inner city or most impoverished part of the city of Chattanooga doesn't mean that's who I am. Just because I've been incarcerated before and been locked up and, you know, got charges doesn't determine who I am. So I actually move forward and show others that they can do it too by being a living example and allowing God to use me daily and saying, hey, Lord, I'm a vessel. Whatever you allow me to do, whatever you want me to do, is not my choice on if I want to do it or not. I always think about, when I think about Jonah and the well, and I must say that because I ran for years. I did not want this. This is not something I say I woke up, oh, I'm going to change my life around. I'm going to be an organizer. No, I did not. I rebelled. I did not want to do that because I'm like, this is not for me. This is not who I am. But you can run from something. I went all the way to the south side of Chicago. If you don't know about Chicago, I literally stayed and went to the south side of Chicago. And I, some way, somehow, ended right back here doing what I was supposed to have been doing from the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
a couple other quick questions before we let you go. What's the response been like at a government level? You mentioned the commissioners of the county. Talk just a second about the response you're getting and what's a couple of the hurdles are in trying to implement some of the things that you're trying to implement.
Good question. Lately, I've been seeing some great responses. One thing about it is that we have a very diverse group. So I've had people in my task force speak to the magistrates. We've talked to certain commissioners. I don't want to say names, but we've talked to certain commissioners that are on board for ending cash bail. Why they're on board, because if you're talking about politics, they're actually seeing that it's taking a lot of money out of the taxpayers' pockets. People don't realize that you're paying thousands of dollars for someone to be housed in a facility, and they're only still there for pretrial. They haven't even had a case, and they're still incarcerated. Yeah. So you have so many people that are locked up and those different things. So we've having a good response. On the back end, and the bad part about it, how I take it, here locally in our city, we have a high bonding company, era, and it's a lot of people that makes money off of people going to jail and being incarcerated. So a bondsman pays 10%. You pay a bondsman 10% of the bail. So if your bail is $1,000, you would pay a bondsman $100. If your bail is $2,000, you would pay a bondsman $200. But with us, you don't pay at all. So I feel like the bondsmen and the bonding companies right now are going to be like a higher, because it's like dealing with people's livelihoods, and I think that's going to be a backlash. And then it's a certain judge is right now that actually pointing the finger towards that and saying, hey, but that's politics too. People will side with those that they feel will support and get their vote.
Yep.
And even if it's right or wrong.
Yep. Wow. Very informative. If I wanted to be involved with this area of things with Caleb, what steps would I take?
First, I would tell a person to go to our website. So that's www.calebcha.org. I would first direct you to go there, because on there you actually can go see each task force. Each task force have a one-sheeter the one sheet actually describes what each task force believe in, what we're standing on. Secondly, you would actually communicate with either myself, because on the site you can actually put in information to send a message to us. It'll either come to myself or my other organizer, Michael Gillen, and one of us will reach out to you, typically myself, and we'll have a one-on-one, because from that one-on-one, I would determine and see what your interests are, if you want to be a part of education, economic mobility, or criminal justice reform. Even though I'm an organizer for Caleb as a whole, I am a co-chair for the task force, and that was before I became an organizer. This is something that I'm very passionate about, because this affected my life for so long. I'm 34 years old, and I haven't been in trouble in over 11-something years, but that stuff still is on my record outside the ones I've got expunged. So that's something I would say, tell people to reach out to us through the website and go from there.
Alan, thank you.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to pray for you and for Caleb before we let you slide off. We are going to hold Alan for lunch, and we're going to introduce him to haystacks. It's an Adventist staple.
Okay.
I think you'll like it.
Okay.
Yeah. But let me pray for you and the crew at Caleb, and then we'll let you slide off the stage here. Father, thank you for Michael and Alan and the crew at Caleb and the work they're doing in our city. Challenging tasks, hurdles, venturing into areas that are controversial in some ways, but that are moving our city to a place of greater inclusion and love, and lifting up the lives and the quality of lives of so many people who have struggled, whether it's the housing, whether it's the criminal justice side of things, or whether it's just coming alongside our kids in the school system and helping them be more successful. But I'm grateful for the work that the affiliated organizations with Caleb are doing. I'm grateful for Alan this morning, his willingness to take time to come and sit down here and help us better understand the challenges facing our city on the side of the criminal justice angle of things. And so I just pray for your Spirit's continued presence in the life of Alan and Michael and those at Caleb. I pray for those wellies, part of our church, that are involved in that as well. Pray your Spirit's work and movement and guidance and direction, and that you'll continue to use these individuals and use this organization collectively to bring about a better quality of life for those who call Chattanooga home. And this is our prayer, and we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks again, my man.